And joining us live now is Siddhant Sibbal for more on this. And Siddhant, what more can we expect from this meeting between S Jaishankar and his counterpart in China?
Well, the meeting is over now. It's lunchtime in Beijing, and we do expect the next schedule, the next important event to take place. That is the India-China Media Forum to take place. So remember, Jaishankar is in Beijing for the high-level meeting of the cultural and people-to-people consultation meet, which is the second meet which is taking place. The first happened last year between the then Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj and Wang Yi, which happened in Delhi. It was an outcome of the Wuhan summit, but by and large, two things will be in the focus. First, of course, the second big informal summit between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping, which will happen in October in India. And second, of course, this meeting happening in the backdrop of the Pakistani Foreign Minister's visit to Beijing. He was in Beijing on Friday for this emergency visit there in the backdrop of India's internal decision of changing the special status for Jammu and Kashmir. So that will be on top of the mind of both the foreign ministers. We know that there will be a press statement as well, and this is a press statement which both sides will be watching very carefully, and of course Islamabad will also be watching very carefully, because remember the statement which came out of the meeting between the Pakistani foreign minister and the Chinese foreign minister. The Chinese foreign minister stated that both India and Pakistan are important partners for China, and remember, at a time when Beijing itself is facing pressure from Washington, it would not like to antagonize New Delhi. It needs New Delhi right now, and both understand, but both are big, large Asian neighbors, and they will have to work despite their differences. And the focus will be on one line that came out of various meetings between the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President, that differences should not become disputes, and that will be a big focus between both the foreign ministers.
Right, Siddhant, thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest on, S Jaishankar, who is in Beijing at the moment. Well, let's move on to some other news now, and live visuals coming in of a sit-in protest that is underway at the Hong Kong airport. Remember, this is the third day of protest at the Hong Kong airport and follows another night of violent clashes between pro-democracy activists and the riot police. And you can see those visuals on your screens of the crowds just thronging the international airport in Hong Kong. This is the third consecutive day of protest. The focus on the airport comes as the city's protest movement enters its 11th week since Friday. Groups of peaceful protesters have occupied the airport's main arrival terminal, unfurling banners and handing out anti-government leaflets in multiple languages to international visitors. And numbers at the airport have never risen above the low thousands, but there were calls for 1 million people to take on to the airport terminal in reaction to the alleged police brutality. And this is to bring focus to the international tourists and travelers who throng the Hong Kong airport. It's a very busy airport, a very busy airport terminal where, of course, Hong Kong is seeing massive protests underway at the moment, and this started on Friday and it's been going on. So it's gone into its fourth day today as we see the crowds just keep surging. By and large peaceful, but yesterday there were protests at night that turned violent. And so far we know that this hasn't really disrupted the flight operations at Hong Kong, or there is tight security at the Hong Kong airport. The first round of these protests, remember, when they took place a couple of weeks ago, had also the staff of the Hong Kong airport had also joined in. These are black-clad protesters. Most of them are wearing black T-shirts to emphasize, of course, that Hong Kong is going through a dark phase in its democracy, demanding several things, among them, of course, the complete suspension and scrapping of the extradition bill, and, of course, Carrie Lam's resignation as well. That is the chief executive of Hong Kong. Other than that, of course, also is the demand that there needs to be more democracy here in Hong Kong. And the Hong Kong government has, of course, been blaming the mass protests for an economic downturn in the region. One of the industries that has been worst hit, of course, is tourism. The government reported that tourist arrivals dropped 26% at the end of the last month compared to the previous year. The airlines in the region have also claimed that the forward bookings for the next few months have also taken a hit. And on Friday, protesters held demonstrations at the international airport, like today, further hitting flight schedules. A similar protest took place on July 26th, and on the 5th of August alone, more than 200 flights were cancelled due to a strike in Hong Kong. The travel industry accounts for 4.5% of its economy. It employs about 250,000 people, so you can well imagine how it's been hit. On Friday, Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam highlighted the impact on tourism. She said the impact was worse than that of the 2003 outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome. She also warned that an economic downturn was set to hit Hong Kong like a tsunami. She blamed the traffic disruptions and the clashes between the police and the protesters for damaging the economy. Meanwhile, the pro-democracy lawmaker Claudia Mo slammed Carrie Lam. She said that blaming the protesters for the economic slowdown was absolutely absurd. And of course, Hong Kong protesters have several demands. There are 5 demands in total. No characterization of the movement as a riot. Of course, the scrapping of the bill, a committee to investigate police's use of force, universal suffrage in elections by 2020, and the removal of the Chief Executive Carrie Lam, and the removal of the extradition bill. So those are the 5 demands. None of them, of course, so far have been met by Hong Kong or the Chief Executive Carrie Lam.